Craftsman Days are here at Lowe's with big savings on the tools you need. Save $100 on the Craftsman V20 6-tool power tool combo kit, now at $199. No matter what the project is, Craftsman's high-quality, high-performance products empower you to build on. Stop by your nearest Lowe's store and check out the full line of Craftsman tools today. Valid through 6/18 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Good morning, folks. Welcome in. It is Money Moves. Jonathan Von Tobel here at the desk out in Las Vegas and in faraway places unknown along the East Coast, I assume. Keith Irizarry joins us here today. He'll be with us for the rest of the week as we are fired up to get into – it is getaway day in Major League Baseball. We do have quite a bit going on in the league and some good games at that doubleheader. We have a lot to get to in the NBA as one of two finals tickets have been punched. The Oklahoma City Thunder get there too. Keith, before we get to our rundown and everything else, how are you this morning?
I'm good. I like the parts unknown. Yes, I am in the Northeast. I'll just label it that. Northeast. Done. All right?
I was going to say your address. I know it off the top of my head, but you know what? I didn't want to really give that out.
I know. But the problem with you is I give you information and you're like, oh, here's your social security number, and you'll start shouting that out too. I've learned I can now no longer give you like the deep dive stuff anymore. I can't do it.
That's why I got fired from the last job. Let's get to the rundown, folks.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
All right. I think you're probably a little nervous, too. Your New York Knicks got to stave off elimination tonight, down 3-1 in the series. There are some favorable trends for you, but how are we feeling about the Knicks back at home to try to extend this thing?
Yankees look real good right now, right? Yankees playing good baseball. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, if I were to just put my Knicks fan hat on, I would tell you that I'm crazy nervous. I don't believe that they can do it tonight. All the things that I went through as a teenager and in my early 20s watching the Knicks, from a betting standpoint, I think it's the Pacers game to have tonight, and I've got a bunch of player props I like on the Pacers side.
All right. We can't wait to hear your thoughts on that. About, as one ESPN personality called them this morning, an average team that Jalen Brunson had to carry by himself to the Eastern Conference Finals. Maybe we can have more on that a little bit later. Yes, a little embarrassing. Also today, we will have a little bit of, is that something you'd be interested in? A lot of good, I think, topics here. I'm very excited for this. Some really good bets to discuss, especially when it comes to Major League Baseball. Is there one in particular that you were excited for? I know you were fired up for this morning.
I like the Cy Young conversation we may have there. All right, I'll leave it there. I like that. And Brian Ortega, so I did this segment with Stormy once, and Brian Ortega, our producer, put it all together. It's fun. It's the only difference, last time he didn't give us the topics. This time he gave us the topics. So, I don't know. I think he's getting a little, he's not as sneaky anymore.
Yep. Well, it was. I'm very excited for it. You're right. I've got some Cy Young tickets, so I'm interested in that market as well to see where you're going to go, too. But last and certainly not least, as we start our day off, we do have a winner in the Western Conference. The OKC Invitational is now over. For those who do not remember, going back to January, I've called the Western Conference the OKC Invitational. You are all invited to compete. But we were there to crown one champion, and it was the Oklahoma City Thunder, and that came to fruition last night as the Thunder blew out the Minnesota Timberwolves, kept them at arm's length the entire way, and got to the NBA Finals on Wednesday. Look, I think in a blowout like this, there's not that much. I don't know about you, Keith, but I threw up my feet after the first quarter. I was telling our guy, Kelly Bidlin, who produces the show prior to us on a numbers game, I knew after the first cue, you're like, oh, no, we're good here. This is going to be a laugher. Timberwolves didn't show up today. OKC's on it from a defensive standpoint, and sure enough, that came through. I mean, I don't even know where you start for Oklahoma City in terms of the conversation about them. But I'll just ask this general question to you. When you look at this run through the Western Conference, and now that they are here, what is the first thing you think of when you look at this OKC team as they wait for whoever it is going to be coming out of the East?
Here for the long haul is the first thing, because they're all pretty young, one of the youngest teams that have ever gotten to the point. I think, the youngest team since the Portland Trail Blazers in the 1970s to get to the NBA Finals. You've got a superstar in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that's going nowhere. You got a guy in Jalen Williams who is almost underappreciated, even though he was third-team All-NBA. Chet is, when he's healthy, is one of the best players, tall, big men in the NBA. And they're just a well-rounded team. And I think you're right about the OKC Invitational. It was so naive of people to go, well, they're too young. You know what? A lot of times what has to happen to teams is they take their lumps. They got upset last year in the postseason, and then they added Hartenstein, who is a solid role player. You add Alex Caruso, who knows how to win games and can literally play any position on the court defensively. They're just deep, and when you've got the depth like that, you could withstand if there were any injuries. And oh, by the way, I don't have any wood near me. Knock on wood, they've been healthy.
Yeah, they are a very impressive group, and I think there's a lot that sticks out when you think about them. And as we wait for whoever it's going to be, most likely the Indiana Pacers. We know the numbers behind these 3-1 series leads, but still a possibility that the Knicks are able to pull this off and win 3 straight. But they've outscored their opponents in this postseason by 11.6 points per 100 possessions in non-garbage time. They've only allowed 106.2 points every 100 possessions on defense. And that's what I get back to. Whoever this is going to be coming out of the East, Keith, whether it is the Knicks, who are very top-heavy and don't rely too much on their depth and don't have much scoring creation off of the bench, or a Pacers team which is very deep and wants to run, but will have to do it against the best defense we've seen in a while here in this postseason. That is the thing that I cannot wait to see. I hope we get Indiana and Oklahoma City, because those matchups in a championship game, number one offense versus number one defense, or just best offense versus best defense, are absolutely incredible, and that's what we're going to get if we get those. But how is it not how good this Thunder team has been defensively? And by the way, how about this? Throughout the run, I got a lot of no, this team's overrated. They stink. They're not as good as we think they are. The OKC Thunder, after they cover yesterday in Game 5, Keith, for the season, 61-35-3 ATS, according to John Ewing over there at BetMGM. So, in other words, they have covered 63.5% of their games, despite being the favorite or co-favorite to win this entire thing from the gun. This team has been highly rated, and they have exceeded expectations in the large sample size.
Yeah, they are a bettor's dream. And again, just to come back to a few of the things that Oklahoma City does well. So I was looking at some of the numbers. Best defensive rating, best opponent field goal percentage, most deflections per game. And you really have to be like a deep dive analytics person to care about that, or some sort of scouting coach, because a lot of people just look and they go, how many steals did you get? But deflections actually matter. They get almost 19 deflections per game. And then, of course, points per game, they're low on that, and points allowed in the paint. So when you think that you could, try to do something against them, you can't. And then I think you go even further, JVT, when you look at what they were able to do against Anthony Edwards. You and I sat here 2 days ago talking about Anthony Edwards and not shooting enough shots, and he took 18 shots yesterday. But at no point in that game, and I know it was a horrible first quarter, but at no point in that game did you feel like, well, there's a chance that Anthony Edwards could take this over. Oklahoma City takes away whatever your best aspect is and tells you, beat us another way. So if it's the Pacers and they have to take away Tyrese Halliburton, they will. They'll throw the Dorts and the Cason Wallaces, and they'll throw Jalen Williams and anybody at Tyrese Halliburton, and they'll say, okay, someone else beat us. It won't happen.
Yeah, this is all of this is going to be absolutely tremendous. To your point, too, about some of the granular numbers for this team when you're talking about what they do defensively. In transition off of steals, if you look at it, in this postseason, the Oklahoma City Thunder have been very good. Offensive rating in those plays, on those plays at 153.4. They were second in the postseason behind only Houston in terms of points added per 100 possessions in transition off of steals. So, in other words, you're turning those guys over, you're getting out and running. It was great to watch. They're a really fun team, and hopefully, this next round of the NBA Finals, whoever they play, is going to be a little bit longer than what we've seen here in the conference finals in each sport, because Western Conference Finals is over. We'll see. We'll talk about that because we do have some numbers on that. By the way, we'll talk about this too. Very, very strong belief in the Thunder to win this entire thing. Minus 750 favorites to win the NBA Finals right now. They would be $8 favorites over the Indiana Pacers. They would be $7 favorites over the New York Knicks, whatever that decides. But the larger, I think, theme here, Keith, is the fact that these conference finals, in terms of length, competitiveness, in terms of how long they're going to go, in both sports have been awful. And last night, we thought we were going to get something in the NHL. I regret this. I may have sent a text to Brian Ortega and Stormy Buonantony, who is out in Italy, and I replied, she texted us like 3 days ago. She was like, oh, JVT, your Hurricanes, huh? When they were down 3-0, so I put that in the back pocket. I waited for my moment, and then when they were up 2-0, I replied to that old text, and I was like, what about my Hurricanes? And then they got outscored by 5-1 the rest of the way, and I immediately wanted to take it back. Yeah, but this thing was, this was over from game one. The Florida Panthers, I keep using the Thanos reference, they're inevitable, and that was the case, and they move on. But that was, I thought, so impressive over the course of 5 games for Florida, outside of the one loss. I've never seen in hockey, at least to my eye, and it's a novice eye, an ass-kicking like that over the course of a series. That was incredible.
So if you want to make a comparison, the Thunder and the Panthers, there's a little bit of it. Obviously, the Panthers won the Cup last year and went to the Cup 2 years ago, so that part doesn't work. But it's the depth. The Florida Panthers, it doesn't matter who's on the ice. They are all, Evan Rodriguez scores last night just to add another player that has scored for this team. You know they've got a great netminder in Bob, like a proven track record there. A great coach in Paul Maurice. Like, all is set for them. They, you don't want to say the D word dynasty, but they're right there. To make it now to 3 consecutive cups, which is not something that happens. I know the Lightning did it and the Oilers did it back in the mid to early 80s. So this is built correctly. They are depth, and yes, they do have some stars too. But, they just beat you in waves. It's really impressive. And I feel bad for the Hurricanes. Had another nice season. They're a really good regular season team that always falls just a little bit short in the postseason.
All right, when we come back, we're going to get into the Eastern Conference Finals in the association a little bit more in depth. I will say yesterday I expressed shock at the market making the Knicks such big favorites. They have responded. That number has come down. Talk about that line movement, the total, and some player props for the Knicks Pacers, and see if New York can stave off elimination tonight.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Eastern Conference Finals resumes tonight in what has been a very good series for the most part, very entertaining. It saved us here so far in the Conference Finals because the other 3 series, both NHL and the NBA, have not really been too competitive outside of a game here or there. Keith Irizarry is alongside, filling in for Stormy Buonantony. For those wondering, Stormy will be back at some point. She'll be back on Monday. That's allegedly the rumor. We'll see if that's the case. All right, Keith, Indiana, New York. I opened the show yesterday. We were talking about this with Mark Malusis, and I expressed absolute shock, utter shock at the market's resistance to adjust here. And what I meant by that was the Knicks opened as 5.5-point favorites, 5.5-point favorites for this game once the previous contest was over. It was too much. This team has, for some odd reason, been upgraded since game 1, and I guess you can kind of understand it. Like, game 1 they lose, so market thinks zigzag in game 2. They closed as 6-point favorites there. They lose that game outright. It's only a 1.5-point spread for game 3. They end up pulling that comeback off. Game 4, it's still under 3. So my whole premise here has been, I have been betting Indiana in every game since game 1 because I just think the market is too high on the Knicks. These two teams, at the very worst, are equals, and I think we have mounting evidence that they are not equals and that Indiana is better. We are down to 4 now, some spots still 4.5, with a total of 222.5 or 223.5, depending on where you look. We'll start with the side. Do you agree with what the market's done, pushing this down to 4?
100%. I was confused as to why the Knicks would be as heavy favorites as they were. The Pacers is the right side on this one. Take them the 4.5 or the 4 points. They probably win tonight, so you might as well go money line as well. Listen, I think when you look at this series, it all boils down to a few things. One, how were you going to bounce back from the historic collapse that you had, epic collapse that you had in Game 1 for the New York Knicks? And clearly they have struggled in closer games. And then the next part is the injuries that are on the table right now. So we talked about this 2 days ago. Nesmith, I was wondering whether he would be healthy. He looked fine. And now you've got Cat dealing with the knee issue. I think we're going to find out something is much worse with the knee than we're letting, they're letting us be known. He'll play tonight. He'll be hobbled. I don't know how that'll go. Again, I want the Knicks to win because I grew up in New York and enjoy watching the Knicks play. I want the Knicks to win because I like basketball and would love to see more of this series, and I think it's been a fun series. But the side is the Pacers. They've been the better team. They are the deeper team, and for as good as Captain Clutch is, the Jalen Brunson, right? Halliburton has been a better version of that in this series.
Yeah, I will say, if you are, because I agree with everything you're saying about the side, Cat with the official questionable tag, there is a pretty good chance that this gets back up to 5 once he's officially announced as active. We saw that with Aaron Nesmith, right? That was sitting around 1.5 for Game 4. He officially gets announced as active. I think there was some public pile on too, but that eventually closed 3. So if you do like Indiana, my whole point here is maybe sit back and wait till you get to game time. This isn't going to get to 3.5, so just see once he's officially announced as active. Because I agree with you. Despite the questionable tag, Cat will play. They will see if he's out there. I mean, it looked like his leg was going to fall off, and he still just stayed out in that game. So I don't think there's any question, and I think the market might still get back up to 5 once he's announced as officially active. Let me ask you something. So I've been harping on this, and I made reference to this. ESPN's Mike Greenberg earlier today, I think it was on, what's the morning show? Get Up. Thank you. Made a statement that Jalen Brunson had carried a very average team to the Eastern Conference Finals, that this team was very flawed, that he doesn't want to hear anything, was the premise, about Jalen Brunson's fault in this 3-1 series deficit. My question for you is, how do we not ignore that they have been outscored by 26 points in these 4 games in his minutes on the floor, that he is the point of attack for all of these teams when you're talking about what they attack defensively? And I wanted to get your thoughts on this stat as an extension of it. If you look at the metrics, this year in the playoffs against Indiana, Brunson has defended 95 pick and rolls as the screener defender. In other words, every time he's on the floor, the Pacers point to his guy and they say, you come over here and set a screen because we're going to go after Brunson. They are attacking him on that end of the floor, and he has not answered the call. So, I mean, nothing has changed, right? Like, that's what the Knicks have been all year. Whenever Brunson's out there, he is a pause. He is an issue for you on the defensive end of things. So I had a problem with this, and the whole conversation was a little bit different. So I was watching when this happened, and Greeny was more, I think he went a little hyperbolic with that phrase, that statement, because he was annoyed that everyone's blaming Brunson for this. And he's saying that people need to stop picking apart Brunson, and that's what we do with all superstars, right? Like, even Ant Edwards, I'm sure is, and I didn't watch the later stuff this morning, but I'm sure he is going to get ripped. He had some weird comments about being happy that he's only 23 years old and he'll be able to be here a lot, right? So I know that the narrative always becomes, how can we shred superstars? It was a little bit weird to go as far as saying this is a bad roster or an average roster. OG Anunoby is one of the better defensive wings in the NBA and is a solid scorer. Mikal Bridges, you sent over 5 firsts for him for a reason, and he's a really good basketball player. And oh, by the way, Karl Anthony Towns, hasn't he scored 60 like twice in games? He's a multi-time All-Star. Is it a flawed roster? Yes. Like 28 other rosters are flawed. Jalen Brunson is an All-Star. He's one of the better players in the NBA. He's bad at defense, is what it is. This roster in general
is pretty darn good. And the shame of all of this, and I'm sorry, Knicks fans and JVT, you're not a Knicks fan. I'm deriving from all of it. So I'm sorry, Knicks fans. This was a really golden opportunity. The Celtics got injured, and you beat them. The Cavs got beaten up a little bit. They were injured, and they got beat. This was the golden opportunity to get yourself to the finals for the first time since 1999, and it doesn't appear like it's going to happen.
No, I'm a fan of winning franchises like the Los Angeles Clippers, so I don't know anything about what you're going through at this point right now.
Lob City, baby.
That's right. The highest point of my fandom. I will say this, and the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because you use the phrase to trash superstars. This to me is not that. This is, look, this weakness is not going away. And whether that this is tonight or whether this is when they go back to Indiana, this is something that Indiana is going to be able to pick at time and time again for however long this series lasts and whenever Brunson's out there. And, Keith, I go back to this. I called this last game. I can't remember. Our week has been a blur. If you were on with us prior to this last game or if it was Mark, but whatever it was, I called that last game a litmus test for Tibbs. Would you realize that in the games that Brunson had foul trouble, you had to stagger him and Cat, and thus those lineups were better defensively? And in the second half of Game 4, he reverted back to old Tibbs. He played them both a vast majority of their minutes together. They were getting cooked in the third quarter. They had a defensive rating of 130, and I just don't trust that Tibbs is going to be able to see through that and make some sort of an adjustment, which is why going back to this, Indiana for the side, I think there's a case to be made for their team total to go over, unless we're going to see Tibbs really adjust and start to stagger those minutes like he did in the first half, or if he's going to revert back to where he's at, and we haven't even gotten to the Mitchell Robinson lineup yet. That, to me, I think is my whole point is this team going to change defensively? My answer is probably no, and thus this seems like a really good spot for Indiana's offense yet again to shine.
Yeah, I think the Pacers will shine. I agree with you. I also think part of the conversation, like tomorrow, let's say that the Pacers win tonight. I think tomorrow the conversation amongst many media, personalities will be, is Tibbs the right guy for the New York Knicks? And I have gone back and forth on this, and I know this wasn't planned. This isn't the conversation we were going to have here, but I'd love to bring it up. I routinely say this. I am never a person that calls for other human beings' jobs. I don't call for firings. People have, families and bills to pay and all this kind of stuff. But from just analyzing things going on, I do wonder if Tibbs has gotten all that he can at this point out of this, and it might be time to move on. It really might be.
Especially with, look, I think that this is, if you do it respectfully, these guys do make millions upon millions of dollars. I think if you're doing it in a fair way, right, and it's a fair criticism of the shortcomings for Tibbs with this team, and on top of that, you do have a guy with New York ties that I think is a better coach that is on these ESPN broadcasts right now that I think would be able to do great things with them and Michael Malone. And that is something that is going to be a small problem.
Yes, but no. The answer is Jay Wright. Bring back, making this all Villanova all day, every day. I want Jay Wright.
It's funny you say that. Not Jay Wright, but I believe, let me double check. I think Zach Cohen, I'm going to text him. I think he believes that Hurley is actually the guy. That Hurley actually wanted to stay on the East Coast.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's why he didn't take the Lakers job. But now that this is going to potentially be open, it's going to be see a UConn, and I'm here.
I could see that happening, yeah, because I guess his wife didn't want to move out west. She's always been on the East Coast. Interesting, yeah.
All right, we'll get to the player prop angles here. Mine does involve Mitchell Robinson, so we'll talk about him coming up a little bit later. We can get to the player prop aspect of this matchup. On the other side, though, like we mentioned, we do have another ticket punched in the Stanley Cup final. Let's talk to Nick Alberga about this, what we have seen from Florida. Are they, much like OKC, inevitable from what we have seen up to this point, and who will they get in the Stanley Cup final? All those answers when we return here on Money Moves.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting
Network. Starting morning right right way, folks. Check out everything we have up on the website of VSiN.com. Right now, live, Greg Peterson's MLB picks. Pacers, Knicks, Game 5. Best bets from Zach Cohen, Lou Finicaro, as looks at UFC Vegas 107. Coming up later, we have Steve Makinen's Cracker Barrel 400 NASCAR simulation. Oilers Stars Game 5 preview from Jonathan Davis and Tyler Shoemaker's WNBA selections. And make sure, when you go, sign up at VSiN.com/subscribe. Use the promo code PRO. Sign up, and you can get 14 months for less than $200. All at VSiN.com/subscribe. All right, let's head out to the Progressive Guest Line. Nick Alberga is nice enough to give us some time here today to discuss everything that we have seen so far in the Stanley Cup Playoffs. Nick, we appreciate it, as always. So we kind of opened the show talking about OKC and what felt like the inevitable nature of the Thunder. And it does seem that there is a hockey team that does mirror that dominance, and that would be the Florida Panthers. The way I described it was, I have a novice hockey eye, but, Nick, I have never seen an ass-kicking like that in a series like what we just watched with the Panthers. Am I overselling what we have seen from Florida during this run?
Not at all, and to your point, I feel like the Western Conference Final has almost been the same way. Like, I think Dallas is lucky to have won a game in that series, and if you recall in Game 1, it was a meltdown. It took a meltdown in the third period for the Edmonton Oilers. So I feel like these are two teams on a collision course for a rematch, and I think your breakdown is very fair of the Eastern Conference Final, where it was men against boys. The Florida Panthers are an excellent team, and I think you can maybe get to the point where you say this team is better than the team that won the Stanley Cup last season, guys.
19 different goal scorers this postseason for Florida. Just the depth, the dominance of this squad. So why have they been able to build this roster the way that they have and now go back to a cup for a third consecutive season?
I think it's about DNA. Like the big move for me was bringing in Bill Zito, who at the time not many knew what this guy could bring to the table as GM coming over from the Columbus Blue Jackets organization. But he set sort of a culture for how this team's going to run. The other big move is Matthew Tkachuk, which I think is intriguing because Tkachuk is so hurt right now, and everybody's going to be stunned when the information comes out about what he's been dealing with here in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but still going about his business, getting in the scrums. And I think the great thing about the Panthers is that they always find a way to bring in the right pieces. How often do we see in pro sports you bring in a guy and it doesn't necessarily fit regardless of how big the name is? This year, the two pickups for Brad Marchand, who just has fit in seamlessly. It took a bit of time. It was a turbulent stretch at the beginning, but he found his way here. And the third line's been so dominant with Lindell and Luosterainen, who got hurt last night. And then Seth Jones on the back end. Like, he is a perennial top two defenseman. He was stuck in Chicago for all those years. Now he's on a winner like Florida, and we're finally seeing him play to the level we know he's capable of. So you put that all together, and there's a reason why I think it's so hard to handicap who would win the Conn Smythe Trophy if the Panthers won this year, guys. Like, I guess it's Sergei Bobrovsky, but like that's been my major takeaway through 3 rounds is just the depth of this team. In every game, it's a new guy who steps up.
So as we look at this team, and we're sitting back, we're waiting for who their opponent's going to be. More likely than not, it is going to be Edmonton. So I guess I'll ask Nick, what's their weakness? Like, if they lose this series to whoever it is, how do the Florida Panthers lose a series? What happens?
Well, they're not good on face-offs. I guess you can start with that conversation. I think it's patience. Like, the biggest reason why the Panthers seem to find success is that nothing phases them. No moment's too big for them. We saw a case in point last night. They're up, or they're down 2-0, and they battle back with 2 goals in 35 seconds, change the course of that game. Like, even, as you guys know, I cover the Maple Leafs. Looking back at round 2, I was there for Game 3 in Sunrise. It's 2 Cobb Leafs. They're up 3-1 and 2-0 in Game 3, and you have a chance to take a 3-0 series stranglehold. And in this world of betting, we all know the numbers when you're up 3-0 in a series. And I think it's their ability to rise up to an occasion. But I do think they're beatable. I think depth is in question for sure. There's some injuries to think about, too, with Sam Reinhart, A.J. Greer, who's been a good fit on their fourth line. Luosterainen, as referenced, missed last night's game. And I think the Oilers would pose a serious threat, even without Zach Hyman into the lineup. But it is difficult to break down how to beat the Florida Panthers, but I do think patience is a big part of it. Teams, they force teams into making difficult decisions, and then they pounce on your mistakes, and pretty much how it works out in this game.
And it was almost an epic comeback by the Oilers last year in the Cup final. Before we move on and kind of talk about the Oilers and the Stars tonight, the Hurricanes, I don't want to be almost like a jerk with this, but it feels like it's the same old thing. They dominate in the regular season. They outshoot everybody. They win all the 5-on-5 battles, and then they get in the postseason and they fall flat on their face at some point. What can they do to change this?
Look, I got blowback last night when I suggested and asked if Rod Brind'Amour's job should be on the line. But in this day and age of turnover in the NHL, guys, like every team makes a coaching change, I think, like every second season. Like the stats are revolting. And Carolina, here they are with Rod Brind'Amour, widely perceived as one of the best coaches in hockey. But with the due respect, like what has he won? Carolina gets to a conference final and then they lose. They don't actually normally win games in the conference final. You guys, I'm sure, talked about the stats ad nauseum early on here in the conference finals, how they lost like 15 in a row. Like it was insanity. And I think it's crazy to keep going back to the well. Look, I'm not crazy about the way the Canes play. They're very high on puck possession, very analytics driven. It starts with Eric Tulsky, their general manager. And I think Brind'Amour's a good coach. They need to find a way to maybe play a heavier style. They don't play an exciting brand either, but I think that the one thing that's been evident, and that this is why they went after Mikko Rantanen, they don't have a bona fide stud. They have a series of excellent players, starting with Sebastian Aho and Andrei Svechnikov and Jacob Slavins, an all-world defenseman on the back end. I think they need to solidify their crease. I don't think they're winning a Stanley Cup with either Anderson or Kochetkov, but they doubled down, tripled down. They're coming back next year with that tandem. But for me, it's a lot about a game breaker. And, that's why I wouldn't be shocked if they chase Mitch Marner in free agency. They need that game breaker, and they're missing one right now. And you can tell when you play a team like Florida's got a couple of them.
All right, Nick Alberga with us. You can follow him on Twitter at The Golden Muzzy. Let's get to tonight, as the Stars will look to stave off elimination, and they're getting bet in the market. Nick opened up a $1.25 favorite. They're upwards of minus 135 now. Just from a side standpoint, what do we make of Dallas in the desperation spot? Can they extend this out one more time?
I've been flip-flopping all day, honestly, and I just got to go with my heart. I think Edmonton's the better team. I think there's way more value in picking Edmonton than there is Dallas. I know Zach Hyman's banged up, but the unique thing about this run for Edmonton, it really hasn't been all about McDavid and Draisaitl. And both these guys are prone to go off at some point in time, whether it's tonight, whether it's in Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final. And they have the ability to take over a game and a series. And I wonder whether it's tonight or in Game 6, that closeout mentality. These guys have had their DNA all over games like that in the past, if that extends. So I think, honestly, there's more value in betting on Edmonton, but I will say I've been flip-flopping on this, and I understand the money's coming in, and I get Dallas is on home ice, and Rantanen's due, and this guy's due, and that guy's due. But I just think Edmonton's the better team. I think easily they could have swept this series, and a gentleman's sweep, I would not be shocked at all.
Bigger deal, Hintz back for the Stars or Hyman out for the Oilers?
I would say Hintz, because I think if there's a team who could deal with losing a guy as important as Zach Hyman, it's Edmonton. I think this team has been preparing themselves for the better part of the last year and a half for a situation like this. Like, it wasn't talked about a lot going into the playoffs, guys, but they got some serious depth. And this is a reason why they picked up Trent Frederick, and they've got Evander Kane back after missing the entire season. Adam Henrique, they're a veteran-laden roster to supplement the star players as reference. And Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is another guy having an incredible year. Like Matthias Ekholm, that's going to be an evolving conversation. And that's why I lean with Hintz, because I think Dallas is just struggling immensely for offense, and Hintz is such an integral part of that offense, whereas like Edmonton, you take Hyman out, I don't expect him to skip a beat. Like, this is the same team that's been without Matthias Ekholm, their number one defenseman, arguably their number one D, notwithstanding Evan Bouchard, and they haven't skipped a beat. So it's Hintz for me.
All right, Nick, before we get you out of here, last 60 seconds, I tell you the look-ahead price for Oilers, Panthers, minus 110 both ways for the series. What's your initial thought?
Yeah, I've been having this internal conversation because I had a lot of stake on the Final Four. I had money on Edmonton, and I had money on the Dallas Stars, and the one team I didn't have money on was the Florida Panthers. I got to side with the team I picked in the preseason and going into the playoffs. So I'm going to ride with the Oilers because I'm like, do I fade them now with 3 teams remaining? But I can't. I'm a true proponent and believer in a team of destiny. it really feels like the Oilers are a team of destiny, and sure, you can make that same case for the Florida Panthers, but I do feel like McDavid learned a lot from last year. You guys talked about it. They came back after being done 3-0 in that series, almost winning in Game 7. So I think the Oilers persevere, and we see our first Cup winner from Canada since 1993 here, guys.
Nick, we always appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, guys. Take care.
Yep, at the Golden Muzzy. Follow him up on Twitter. Keith, I got a question for you. Can the Knicks come back in the series? If I offered you that bet, would you be interested? Let's find out when we come back here on Money Moves.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
What if I told you I have a bet nobody's thought of yet? Is that something you'd be interested in?
All right, I don't know about this not being a bet nobody's thought of, but this is still a very interesting aspect to bring up here. All right,
I like the music underneath there.
It's very good, very good. Mr. New York, the Knicks have their back against the wall. Plus 450 to come back in this series. Are you interested?
No, I wish I had a better answer. I wish I would turn on my New York charm and I'll be like, hey, New York over here. We walking and we talking and like I'll go full New York for you. No, absolutely not. History tells you this isn't going to happen. You watch the way that you can just watch this series and know that it's not going to happen. But what I will tell you is, if the Knicks win tonight, every Knicks fan will start to believe that they can come back and win. Well, you think about, I'll go New York again. Well, you think about it. I mean, we should have won Game 1, right? Hey, so if we would have won Game 1, then really we're winning in this series. And I mean, come on, we're the better team. And Jalen Brunson, big body Brunson, he's gonna come back and we're gonna take care of business.
Yeah.
Sorry to all my New Yorkers. I apologize for that accent.
I mean, that's how I hear every single New Yorker. In fact, that's how you've sounded to me this entire time we've been working together. So I didn't really hear any difference at all.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
I have to say, again, I think I've said this to you, but again, I will reiterate. I put all my cards on the table. If New York has no haters, I am dead. I am a very pure New York hater to my utter core. I saw a video yesterday of a fan of the Knicks out on the street after they lost the Pacers game, and it was this woman, and with that accent, she's like, well, at least we don't got to live in the Midwest like Indiana. I was like, I hope they get crushed. Yeah. Like, I was trying to be nice all week long. I was trying to be okay, and then I saw this street video of all these people like, well, at least we don't have to live in Indiana. I was like, you know what, screw you guys. I hope you get crushed. I hope you get your heart ripped out. I hope Cat retires after the season. I hope Mikal Bridges quits basketball, and I hope everything is terrible for you. So I just want to say that.
I just want to follow-up question. That means New York sports, not New York as a state, New York City, all that kind of stuff, or you don't like New York at all in general?
Second question.
That's what I'm wondering.
Second question.
Nice.
Second bet.
Okay. Yeah, let's move on. Yeah.
All right, possible bet. The Tigers have the third largest run differential in Major League Baseball behind the Yankees and the Cubs, coming off of a 4-game winning streak. Ortega, or is this you, Keith? You like him to win the most games in June at 22-1? Is that something you'd be interested in?
This is Ortega. He puts it down. So the way this will translate out, really, this is the beautiful mind of Brian Ortega, and then we have to decide if we like it or not. So I'm going to say yes. I'll agree with Ortega on this one. 4 games at the White Sox. Those should be wins. 3 versus the Cubs. That's a tough series. 3 at the Orioles. Baltimore has been pretty bad this season. Just 19 wins on the year. 3 versus the Reds. They're okay. 3 versus the Pirates. They're not good. 3 at the Rays. They're just so-so. 3 versus the A's, they're pretty bad. And then 3 versus the Twins, they're pretty good. Feels like a lot of wins in the month of in this month coming up in June.
Can I ask you, at the end of that, you said the Twins are pretty good. So are we believing this turnaround here? I know the sample size is growing of them playing adequate baseball, but we think the Twins are legitimate and maybe going to compete and try to push for a wild card?
Yeah, I think they're I'd be surprised if they don't win 84 games.
Okay.
And what that means is they will be in the conversation at the end of the year. Now, I don't know if they get in. I don't know if they get a wild card, but if they are 83, 84, 85 wins, you're going to be talking about them, late August and into September.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, as you well know and many others, the AL Central looked like maybe the Tigers were going to run away and hide and looked awful for a stretch. But now all of a sudden there is some competition and they do have to push for it. Yeah, Ortega, this actually I think is a pretty good find when you look at overall what this looks like, because I would generally agree, these series for Detroit in the month of June, they all look very winnable outside of this Cubs series. It's going to be relatively tough, but you get them at home. I would venture a guess that 22-1 is not going to last very long out there, because that seems like a pretty solid play for a Tigers team that, by the way, is in contention for having the most wins in the month of May as well. So that's going to be something to look for here as we move forward. All right, possible bet number 3. Aaron Judge with the major numbers this year. Ortega thinks that he could win the Triple Crown plus 175. Is that something you'd be interested in? If you want to go no the other way, it is minus 235.
I've often said I like history, so I always want to be on the side of history. And Triple Crown is something that historically you remember if it happens, right? Plus 175, doesn't really, I don't know. So the batting average, he's first right now. And the 90, I think it's 391 batting average now, leads Jacob Wilson. He's a rookie. I don't think Wilson will keep it up by almost 40 points. Goldie is actually, third, and he's 50 points ahead of him. So maybe the batting average happens. Cal Raleigh is ahead of him by 1 home run right now. I think that Judge will get that category. The RBI one is the one that would be the difficult one, because if the opposing teams are going to treat him the way the Angels did yesterday and intentionally walk him twice the first 2 times he was up. It's the first time in 11 years, I think they said, that someone's been walked intentionally the first 2 times they were batting. The RBI is the one I feel like might fall a little bit short.
Well, and my question is, and maybe we're just past the point of no return with this to an extent where you don't get hurt enough, he's hitting 460 on balls in play. At some point, that's got to stop, right? That's insane. That almost half of the balls you're making contact with, you're reaching. That's nuts.
Or is he just really that much better than everybody? Maybe he is. Maybe he really is the best hitter of this generation right now. Maybe he is.
Yep, that's the one thing you can hang on, because, again, you look at some of these leaders, when you're talking about average, and some of the guys that are floating around him, even like a Freddie Freeman type in 45 games who's hitting 360, his batting average on balls in play is just 400. It's insane. Do you know? We have to look this up. What's the record for batting average on balls in play for a season for a hitter? That's nuts. You got to be near there.
That's a fun one.
That's a nerdy one, but I think we should probably look that up. All right, looking at, actually, can we go to number 5, Ortega? I don't want to mess you up, but we'll stick with the baseball vibe if we could before we move on to the National Football League. Max Fried has been very impressive this year. 7 wins, tied for best in majors, along with the leading ERA at 129. Ortega thinks he could be a real contender in the Cy Young race at 4-1. Is that something that you'd be interested in?
Oh, I'm so in on this. We already know that he's Cy Young capable in Max Fried. The price is nice. The 7 wins that, is so good. He's also 7-0. The dude is basically unhittable this season. He's got the proven track record. The Yankees are going to be in the conversation for best team in the American League all season long. And remember that he was supposed to be the number 2, right? Because Garrett Cole was going to be the ace. Garrett Cole gets hurt. Max Fried is slid in nice and comfortably into that ace role. Carlos Rodon falls into that number 2 spot. He's actually been really good, too. I think that the voters out there will almost give a little bump to Max Fried because of that. I love this play. Good job by you, Ortega.
All right, I'm very anti this play only because I have Hunter Brown from before the season started to win this thing, and I added Jacob deGrom as well. So, but look, it makes sense. And even if I want to poke some holes into his numbers, like the swing and miss stuff in terms of chase rate, whiff rate, not really that high, but he's still striking guys out. And even if he regresses, he's regressing from amazing, elite, incredible to extremely good. So this dude's going to be, I think, a stalwart at the top of this race for a really long time. And as you well know, Keith, it does very help to be wearing pinstripes. That is always going to help you out when it comes to winning some of these awards. All right, let's move to the NFL. Last one here. Looking at the Rams' schedule and the additions they made in the offseason, including Devontae Adams, Ortega likes them to win the most games in the NFL at 20-1. Is that something you would be interested in?
No, I'm not interested in it. I looked at the schedule. Texans week 1, tough. At the Eagles week 3, tough. Week 5 versus the Niners, Thursday Night Football, tough. At the Ravens week 6. At the Niners week 10. Versus the Bucs Sunday Night Football week 12. Cardinals at the Cardinals, by the way, week 14. Week 15 versus the Lions. And then tough to play in Seattle on a Thursday Night Football week 16. Depending on which book you're looking at, it's either 9.5 or 10.5 is the projected win total. It tells you we expect they're going to be very good at football. I don't think they're going to be elite of elite. I like Matthew Stafford. He is 37 years old. I'll say no on this. I'm not interested.
Ortega, I think you had the right division to look at a shot to take for most wins, but obviously I think you had the wrong team. 49ers are 13-1 to have the most wins next season. The easiest schedule by opponent win total by far in the NFL. A team that you would expect has better health luck than it did last season. Purdy, I think, is good when the skill positions are fully healthy. They're a good coach. Shanahan, when they are healthy, has brought them very far along. I think the 49ers are the easiest schedule, and you're getting 13-1 most wins in the regular season the way you would go. That's my candidate for most wins in the regular season. And the New England Patriots.
The Niners is a good one. I like that. That's a good little addition. I like that.
All right, we'll talk about the New England Patriots as well in this show because crazy things are happening out there in New England. Well, technically not in New England. It's happening in faraway places with a New England Patriots.
I'm on a boat. I'm on a boat.
Good call out. That was a jam back in the day. Second hour of Money Moves when we return.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.